Funding will always be the biggest setback. We've seen this time without number that judiciary, unless and until that day that, both the executive and legislature, take seriously the issue of ensuring that funding of the judiciary is given top priority, we will continue having these bottlenecks. Now, even as we talk about cutting funding for various institutions, we must always remember that historically, judiciary has been underfunded. So when you talk about cutting the little funding that is already given to judiciary, you are cutting the little from a judiciary that has always had very little funding. So even as we try to harmonize between the three arms of government, we should try to, so to speak, uplift judiciary by giving it more so that it can be able to serve the people of Kenya. A judge or JU only responds through the pen, and they do that by writing judgments or rulings. So if you have evidence of corruption, what you do is that the Constitution, that's why the Constitution created an institution called Judicial Service Commission. You present it, then appropriate action is taken. And Judicial Service Commission has done that before. We are aware of judges who have been removed before. We are aware of judicial officers who have been removed before. But based on evidence that has been presented, then the due process, following. So we don't have an issue with somebody raising an issue as long as we accept that there has to be due process. People can comment. There's nothing wrong with people commenting, but what we must be alive to is the fact that you have to abide by the Constitution at the end of the day, because it is not a question of making threats or making accusations that are not backed by evidence. All we are saying is that we abide by the Constitution, which protects the independence of the judiciary, just like also the other institutions also have their role under the Constitution. Everybody to just keep on their lane, but we make sure that we are reminded that that independence, apart from being a constitutional imperative, is in the interest of the country. Whether today, whether tomorrow, even before. I mean, at the end of the day, the independence of the judiciary is what will give confidence to the members of the public that they have an institution that they can go back to whenever they have issues. And let's remember that that independence should not be good only when decisions go in favor of somebody. It's also good also even when it goes against the party. From the side of Judicial Service Commission and the judiciary, we don't see why there should be any tussle, because there shouldn't be any at any given time, because what governs the relationship between the three arms of government is the Constitution of 2010. And we must be alive to the fact that this Constitution was passed by the people of Kenya. And I don't think there's anybody amongst us in either of the arms of the government that has a discretion to choose what to implement and what not to implement. The three arms are separate. We accept they're interdependent. But speaking specifically to the issue of the independence of the judiciary, that is not something that can be negotiated, because it's a constitutional imperative. It's expected that judiciary must be independent. And we must accept that that is in the interest of everybody, including the politicians, because nobody would want a judiciary that can kowtow to any party. In fact, we keep saying that you may not see the need for an independent judiciary probably when you're in power. But when you're not in power, that's when you realize the importance of that institution, because it is the same institution that will be able to serve and protect you. So judiciary will remain independent regardless, because that's what is expected of it by the 2010 Constitution. And judges, let's remember one thing. Judges and judicial officers, they'll sometimes rule in favor of a party, and other times they rule against, depending on the facts and evidence and the law of the matter at hand. That is normal. There's nothing unusual about that. And the government, the executive to be specific, is a party like any other. When a judge is hearing a matter, they don't consider that this is government, this is non-government. This is state, this is a non-state actor. It is based on the law, facts, and evidence of the time. And let me say this, even for us as Judicial Service Commission, there are many. Remember, we are the employers. We are the ones who employ the judges and judicial officers. We are the ones who take them through disciplinary process. They also rule against us many times. And when they rule against us, we take we go through the process, we'll appeal. If we win, we are happy. If we don't win, we just comply with the orders. And if there's anything that we need to rectify in terms of our policies or processes, we rectify and we move on. We've never threatened them because we appreciate and accept that judges have decisional independence. And that is not something that we can do anything about, and we can't interfere with it. And even in other jurisdictions all over the world, like recently, for you members of the media, you may be aware about the, big decision that was made against the Netanyahu government by the Supreme Court, where they struck out some laws that, the Knesset had passed. And that is it. You've seen what happened even in the UK when the UK government wanted to repatriate some refugees to Rwanda. The court said, no, you are using the wrong process. So there's nothing unusual, whether in Kenya, whether in UK, whether in Israel, whether in fact, I saw in the media, the new president of Argentina, he was coming up with the labor reforms. And those labor reforms were struck out by the courts. So we must accept that we have a 2010 constitution, and the earlier we put that in our mindset, it will be easier for us so that we don't spend too much time looking for ways and means of circumventing the constitution. We just abide by it. And if you have any issue with a judge or JO regarding any decision they make, there's a due process. You can complain to the Judicial Service Commission, but alive to the fact that even for the Judicial Service Commission, we'll also be duty bound to follow the due process. It's not that we can just take action against a judge or JO because you've said so. We have to look at the evidence and we take them through the process. And if they are culpable, then the law will just take its course. So there shouldn't really be a tussle.